So this video is going to give the step-by-step instructions for the crank axle retrofit procedure. And before you start the procedure, you need to make sure that the bike that you're working on has the bearing adjustment screw as opposed to the spiral retaining ring. So what we're going to do is just use a flathead screwdriver, pop the go cap off, and check underneath. And we see here that we have a bearing adjustment screw and a washer. Now, the alternative would be if you popped off your go cap and you found a spiral retaining ring instead of the screw that you see on the bike here. So if you have the spiral retaining ring, you don't need to do this procedure. So we're going to move forward with the procedure, and the tools that you're going to need are, like I said, the small flathead screwdriver, and then you're going to need 3 Allen wrenches, a 6mm, 4mm, and 2.5mm. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our 6mm Allen wrench. And we are going to unscrew the right crank axle from the bike. So we get our crank axle, our 6mm Allen wrench, and we turn clockwise when looking at the bike from the left side. And we're going to unscrew the axle from the crank arm. There's going to be a pedal washer that comes off with the axle, and that's fine. There's a replacement one in your Retrofit parts kit there. So you can just take that off and set it to the side. Now we're going to swing over to the other side of the bike here. And we're going to keep our 6mm Allen wrench because we need to hold the axle still. Then we need to grab our 4mm, and this is a right hand thread, so we are going to unscrew this by turning this counterclockwise. Now when we're unscrewing it, you can see that the washer may or may not come with it. There's a washer under this screw head. That's totally fine for that to just come out. You want to take those all the way out and just set those off to the side. And the next thing you want to do is just pull this axle out. It should slide right out of the bearings. And if you need to, if it's giving you a little bit of resistance, just kind of wiggle it and pull it out gently, and it should wiggle out. And just set that axle off to the side. So now what we're going to do is grab our new axle, and you want to make sure you grab the correct axle. This has an R on the head. You can't really see it in the video, but there's an R on this surface here. So you're going to want to slide the axle in, again making sure that the pedal threads are on the inside towards the bike, towards the crank arm. And then we are going to grab our new bearing adjustment screw. And so for the right hand side, the new screw has red Loctite on it, and you also want to grab a washer. And this is a left hand threaded screw. So on this side, we're going to tighten this screw with our 4mm Allen wrench, again holding the crank axle with the 6mm. And we're going to install this screw with a 4mm Allen wrench. Again, it's a left-handed threaded screw, so we're going to be turning this screw counterclockwise to insert it. Now, this screw is not designed to be tightened down. It is designed to be adjusted. And what I mean by that is you're going to get this screw seated. You're going to get the washer seated on the inner race of the bearing. So we're going to keep tightening the screw down. until you feel everything tightened up there. And you're going to back the screw off just a hair. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that the axle still spins freely, which it does, and we want to make sure there's no play, so we don't want there to be any play in the axle, meaning you can pull it out and wiggle a little bit. So we're tightened up there. And now what we're going to do is grab our new go cap, and we're going to pop it in here, get one of the flanges set, and then we're just going to pop it in. Alright, so now we are ready to put this back into the crank arm. So you want to take a pedal washer, put it over the threads of the new axle, and rotate the crank arm back down. Now the pedal threads on the right axle are right hand threaded, so we're going to be tightening the axle by turning it clockwise when looking at the bike from the right side, or counterclockwise when looking at the bike from the left side. And you want to make sure that you can if you can, get it started with your hands, because these threads are easy to get cross-threaded. So now that I've got it started with my hands, I'm going to use my 6mm wrench. Again, turning it counterclockwise when looking at the bike from the left side. And I want to make sure my pedal washer is in there, and I want to make sure it's not getting bent as I'm tightening the axle down. So I'm going to tighten that down. And I want to get this snug to 34 Newton meters if you have a torque wrench. We're going to make sure that's tight. And again, now we're going to grab our 2.5mm Allen wrench, and we're going to grab our right hand side axle retention screw. And again, this is on the right side, so it has red Loctite. Now this screw is going to go in through the back of that 6mm hex feature on the axle that we just installed. So we're going to put it in here, and it's left hand threaded. So what we want to do is use our 2.5mm wrench, and we're going to, it's left hand threaded, so we're turning it counterclockwise to install it. And it's important with this screw that we don't want to over tighten it. We just want to get it so it's seated on the axle. So we'll get it, torque it down until it's seated, just like that. And now we want to do one more check. We want to make sure there's no play again between the crank arm and drive arm. We're pulling these apart like this. And we also want to rotate the mechanism, make sure we don't feel any gravelly feeling in the bearings or anything like that. So that side's good. And now we're going to switch over and do the left side in a similar manner. So we're going to start by popping off the go cap. And again, we see that there is a screw there. So we are going to do this procedure for this side. So the first thing we're going to do, again, is take our 6mm Allen wrench, and we're going to unscrew the crank axle from the left side crank arm. And to do that, we're going to use our 6mm Allen wrench, and we are going to turn it counterclockwise as you're looking from the right side of the bike, or clockwise as you're looking from the left side of the bike. And again, there's a pedal washer in here, and that's going to, it's totally normal for that to come out with the threads. Alright, once your threads are all the way out, you can go ahead and set that pedal washer aside. You want to hold on to your 6mm Allen wrench and put it in the back of the crank axle. And grab your 4mm. And now the old left hand retention screw is right hand thread, so we're loosening it by turning it counterclockwise. Now there may be Loctite on the threads, and it may feel like it's a little tough to get out. That's normal, because there is Loctite on the existing screw here. So just keep going until you back it all the way out. And then once you get it all the way out, you want to discard that screw and the washer that came with it. Just set them off to the side. So get rid of the screw and the washer. Now what we're going to do is just slide the axle out of the drive arm. Pull it out of the bearings. Should just slide right out. And we're going to go ahead and swap it for our new left axle. And again, there will be an L on that face there. And we're going to slide it into the bearings so that the threads are facing in towards the bike. It should just seat firmly in there like that. And then what we want to do is grab our new left side bearing adjustment screw, and it has blue Loctite, and we also want to grab the washer that goes with it. And we're going to install it from the outside of the bike here. And this is a right hand thread on the left side here, so we're going to install it by turning it clockwise, just like you would most of your standard screws on the bike. Start it by hand here, and then you're going to need your 6mm to hold the back side of the axle, and then you're going to need your 4mm to tighten the screw down. Now let me reiterate that we are not just tightening this down as tight as you can get it. We are doing an adjustment with this screw. This is really important so we do not lock up the bearings on the bike. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the screw bottomed out, the screw in the washer, get it bottomed out, just until that washer is seated on the inner race of the bearings here. Get it bottomed out, and then back it off a hair. We don't want it to be too tight. And we'll get a little bit more there. So now what we've done is we've just tightened the screw down, and we want to double check. We want to spin the axle and make sure it can spin freely. Now we have a little bit of play here. You can kind of hear that. It's going back and forth, so I'm going to tighten it just a hair more until we don't have any of that play in there. Okay, we're good to go. It still spins. There's no play. So now we need to grab our pedal washer, slide that over the threads, and again we're going to install this arm. Before we do that, you can install the go cap. Don't forget to do that. Install the go cap. And it'll just pop into place with your thumbs here. It's a little snug, but it will pop into place with your thumbs. Now, grab your pedal washer, put that over your pedal threads. And again, if you can get it to start by hand, these are left-hand threads on this side, so you're going to be turning it counterclockwise when you're looking at the bike from this side, and clockwise when looking at the bike from the right side. So once you get started by hand, if you can, just go ahead and lightly turn your 6mm Allen wrench. And when you're done with the retrofit, you can go ahead and discard the old parts that you removed from the bike. So that would include the old crank axles and their pedal washers, along with the old go caps, and then as well you can discard the old bearing adjustment screws and the washers that go with those.